He didn't fight the arrest, yet in the pulsing strobe light of Aita's Pasha nightclub, a 23-year-old stood still as Spanish police closed in. There was no panic, no defiant protest, just a quiet resignation as they called out a name that, officially, shouldn't have existed in that country, under that alias. The man before them looked like any other tourist, clean-cut, almost boyish. But the name on the warrant, Eddie Burton, carried a chilling weight across Europe, marking him as the architect of a vast trafficking network. This wasn't some street-level dealer caught with product. Burton moved the entire system, a ghost in the machine, rarely touching the kilos of heroin, cocaine, and ketamine he funneled into the UK. His ex-partner in Liverpool managed the British end like a precision logistics firm. It took months of relentless surveillance, cutting-edge digital forensics, and a high-stakes nightclub sting to finally bring him down. This is the story of a schoolboy who built a £20 million drug empire, and the precise moment it all came crashing down amidst the dazzling lights of an Ibiza club. But before the lorries, before the nightclubs, before the millions, Eddie Burton was just a kid in Liverpool. 10 years old, school uniform half done, trainers too big, and already drawn into a game far older than him. It started simply: a short walk, a plastic bag passed in secret, a quiet nod from someone older. These were the kinds of tasks you didn't question when you were desperate to prove yourself, to belong. To the outside world, he was harmless, a child. But that was precisely his value. Older boys used him as camouflage, his soft face and small frame ensuring he never drew unwanted attention. He ran for them, watching their every move, learning. Eventually, he outgrew them. By 13, Eddie understood the intricate patterns of the streets. He knew when to talk, when to vanish, how to spot an unmarked police car before it ever clocked him. He didn't flash money or chase street reputation. Instead, he absorbed the system in silence, quick to observe, quicker to adapt, always paying meticulous attention. People would later say he was trouble from the start, family members describing him as a tearaway, too smart, too angry, constantly pushing boundaries. But what Eddie wanted wasn't chaos, it was control. He dreamed of moving vast quantities of illicit goods without ever having to lay a finger on them. By 16, he was no longer the courier, he was giving the orders. Liverpool had given him his street education. Amsterdam would give him the scale. At 19, he slipped out of the country. There was no dramatic send-off, no missing persons report filed, just a quiet flight, a new flat, and a different name on the lease. Back home, no one knew exactly where he'd gone, but they understood why. He wasn't running from anything, he was building something. This wasn't a holiday, it was a fundamental shift. Burton had seen the ceiling in his own postcode: too many egos, too many watchful eyes. In Amsterdam, the real work could begin, not through violence, but through meticulous structure. He didn't carry knives or wave wads of cash. He met quietly, sat in the shadows, and absorbed every detail, taking mental notes. Slowly, patiently, he constructed his supply lines, not as an importer of drugs, but as a silent manager, coordinating hands he never met, a phantom presence. He lived small, rented short-term, changed phones constantly, leaving a digital trail no longer than a few city blocks. While others boasted about their latest score, Burton studied the intricate ballet of logistics: ferry schedules, freight companies, driver hours. He left nothing behind. Back in Liverpool, people still spoke his name, but no one could say where he was. That was precisely how he wanted it. He didn't need to be feared, he needed to be invisible. From Amsterdam, his influence reached further. Spain became his next base: sunlight, private villas, and another crucial layer between him and the inherent risks of the trade. It offered him distance, provided perfect cover, and when the need arose to disappear entirely, it granted him silence. He moved people, quiet links in a meticulously crafted chain, couriers with spotless records, drivers who asked no questions, brokers who knew only one isolated end of the job. Each played their specific part, yet none saw the full, terrifying picture. He gave just enough information: a route, a drop-off point, a single name, and nothing more. Quietly orchestrating it all, pulling invisible strings, was the boy who once delivered small bags of weed in a school satchel. Now 21, hiding in plain sight, he was building something industrial. While Burton slipped deeper into Europe's shadows, his former partner, C.N. Banks, remained anchored in Liverpool. Her role wasn't to simply observe from the sidelines, it was to ensure every cog in the sprawling machine continued to turn seamlessly. Banks wasn't merely an accomplice, she was the indispensable bridge. To the casual observer, she appeared to be someone chasing a lifestyle of leisure and luxury, not running the intricate logistics for a continent-spanning smuggling empire. Her Instagram feed painted a picture of yachts, sun-drenched pool days, glamorous city breaks, beaches in June, and designer bags bathed in soft, filtered light. But behind those curated stories lay a vastly different role, one that never showed up in hashtags. Money needed laundering, couriers required precise briefing, routes had to be meticulously checked, altered, and covered. She handled it all, operating mostly behind the scenes, yet occasionally stepping onto the front line when necessary. Between June 2022 and October 2023, Banks flew to Amsterdam and Spain almost every single month. Her trips were always short, always alone, and always purposeful. On 2 of those journeys, she returned not just with a suitcase full of holiday memories, but with something far more illicit. Phone evidence later confirmed it: ketamine and cocaine, ingeniously hidden within her luggage. With no prior criminal record, no flagged history, she was just another holidaymaker gliding through airport arrivals. But phones, as investigators often discover, remember what people meticulously try to forget. Buried deep within her messages were detailed plans, precise drop-off instructions, and chillingly cold reassurances. After a major drug seizure in Dover, she texted Burton, worried about a particular product that might be on the confiscated bags. He calmly told her not to worry. No one, he assured her, had her print on file anyway. But he was wrong. She wasn't merely a mule, she was the one orchestrating the muling. The National Crime Agency, NCA, would later describe her as essential, the meticulous organizer who ensured Burton's carefully maintained distance never became a critical weakness. She moved cash, prepped trips, sourced clean couriers. She was both a robust firewall and an indispensable fixer. And while he kept his name off everything, she inadvertently left fingerprints. Literally. Her calm confidence was her gravest mistake. She believed the background was safe, that no one would ever look twice at a woman flying home alone with a designer carry-on. But every quiet, seemingly innocuous move leaves a trace. And every trace, eventually, leads back. It was meant to be a routine check, just another HGV rumbling into Dover. The paperwork was immaculate, the driver appeared calm, the boxes inside seemed legitimately loaded. Yet, Border Force officers flagged it anyway. Deep inside, concealed beneath ordinary shopping bags and meticulously taped-up cartons, they discovered something else entirely: 90 kilos of ketamine and 50 kilos of cocaine. The date was July 3, 2022. One seizure, one quiet, yet significant, red flag. 6 weeks later, it happened again. A second lorry, a different driver. This time, the concealment was astonishingly professional, industrial grade, involving a modified fuel tank, expertly reinforced and sealed. Inside, packed tight, were 142 kilos of cocaine and 25 kilos of heroin, built to move undetected across borders. Combined, these 2 shipments alone totaled a staggering 307 kilos, carrying a street value of £20 million. The drivers themselves offered no useful answers, but the illicit loads certainly did. Forensic analysis revealed traces on the wrapping, on the bags found inside the adapted fuel tank. One specific set of prints belonged to Eddie Burton, linking him not directly to the transport, but undeniably to the preparation of the drugs. He hadn't physically crossed the border, but his print had traveled without him. Another distinct set of prints belonged to C.M. Banks, found on the ketamine bags from the first seizure. A direct, undeniable trace from someone who had claimed to be merely in the background. Together, this growing body of evidence didn't just suggest an association, It proved direct contact in the very rooms where the drugs were meticulously packed, on the materials designed to vanish into the vast distribution network. Neither of them was caught at the border, but both had physically touched what was meant to remain forever hidden. And as investigators meticulously pulled at every single thread, flight records, phone extractions, encrypted chats, the true, horrifying scale of their sophisticated operation began to fully reveal itself. The drugs were merely the tangible beginning. The people moving them were proving far, far harder to see. They believed their elaborate encryption protocols would protect them. No real names, no direct calls, just strings of coded messages passed through secure platforms like Signal and WhatsApp. Throwaway numbers, fake contact names, devices meticulously wiped every few weeks. It was all designed to maintain their invisibility, to make them untraceable. But nothing is truly invisible, especially when the initial seizures trigger an in-depth digital review. Investigators painstakingly recovered more logs, more financial transfers, more flight details. The pair communicated like highly efficient colleagues, discussing timelines, exact quantities, and intricate cover stories, coordinating multi-kilo shipments with the precision of experienced logistics managers. Their chats undoubtedly used code, but it wasn't enough. Repeated references to the thing or the run matched precisely to known shipment dates. Prices lined up, locations correlated. Even the emojis they used weren't accidental. A snowflake for cocaine, a pill for MDMA. They planned everything, and meticulously saved nothing. But the phones did. And then came the undeniable travel trail. Between June 2022 and October 2023, Banks flew to Amsterdam and Spain nearly every single month. She wasn't on holiday, she was in the very rooms before the bags were sealed, her boarding passes, her hotel check-ins, her return flights just days before each major seizure. Every single movement left an indelible mark, and investigators matched them, one by painstaking one. Encryption had given them a false sense of confidence, but it offered no immunity. The NCA now possessed the complete blueprint, not mere theory, not just a rumor, but a precise timeline, a clear trail of movement, an undeniable pattern of coordination. And with it, two names they could no longer ignore. CM Banks wasn't just moving drugs, she was also a master of building cover. During the global pandemic, when international travel ground to an unprecedented halt, she found a cunning way through, not only for herself but for others. Investigators later uncovered a parallel scam she was running, selling expertly doctored COVID-19 travel documents, fake test results, subtly altered vaccine records, fabricated proofs of travel exemptions, all meticulously tailored to get people past stringent restrictions. At first glance, it appeared to be mere opportunism, just another opportunistic fraud in a time of widespread chaos. But when examined alongside her suspiciously regular trips to Amsterdam and Spain, it transformed into something far more significant, an operational advantage. She didn't need forged documents for profit, she needed them to move unnoticed, to maintain her crucial mobility. It was a side hustle on paper, but in practice, it was a powerful tool, another ingenious layer of cover, another means to stay relentlessly moving while most of the world stood still. There's no direct evidence this specific scam moved the product itself, but it undeniably moved her. And in an operation built on precise timing and absolute silence, that was more than enough. The fraud didn't take the network down, but it added significant weight to the growing case against her. And it showed one thing with startling clarity: she wasn't just running drugs, she was masterfully running interference. By the time the second lorry was seized at Dover, Eddie Burton was long gone. He hadn't vanished into thin air, he had simply relocated, just as he had done countless times before. He stayed firmly out of the UK, out of physical reach, out of immediate sight, but never out of mind. The NCA began systematically building an ironclad file, meticulous shipment timelines, detailed phone analysis, CM Banks's extensive travel records. Every single detail pointed unequivocally to Burton, not as a mere foot soldier, but as the puppet master behind the curtain. The evidence against him was mounting rapidly, But there was one critical piece missing: they needed him on British soil to face justice. By mid-2023, the case against Burton was robust enough to trigger international action. Eddie Burton had officially become the subject of a multi-agency manhunt, spearheaded by the NCA's Joint International Crime Center, working in seamless partnership with Dutch and Spanish authorities. They didn't know precisely where he would land next, but Ibiza made strategic sense. He had been seen there before, Banks had flown in and out of the island frequently, and it offered him distance, sun, and a reliable supply of anonymity. In August 2023, Spanish police made their move. Precise intelligence placed Burton at Pasha nightclub. He wasn't on the run, he wasn't in hiding, he was simply on a night out, believing himself untouchable. They didn't hesitate. Inside the club's opulent VIP section, surrounded by flashing lights and pulsating basslines, officers made the arrest. There was no chase, no struggle, no attempt to flee. He was indeed using an alias, and the ID he presented didn't match. But his fingerprints did. He wasn't just a name anymore, he was a definitive match. And within weeks, the complex extradition paperwork was already well underway. Burton had meticulously built a network spanning multiple borders, genuinely believing that distance made him an uncatchable phantom. But that distance only served to delay the inevitable. Spanish authorities held him just long enough for the necessary paperwork to clear. His extradition was processed first through Germany, then finalized by the UK's National Extradition Unit. In March 2024, Eddie Burton was finally flown back to Britain, under heavy guard. This transfer wasn't merely a legal formality, it was the climactic final move in a complex, global case that had taken nearly 2 painstaking years to construct. By the time he landed on British soil, the prosecution had an overwhelming arsenal of evidence: 2 massive seized shipments totaling a combined 307 kilos of Class A and B drugs, thousands of coordinated messages between Burton and Banks, extensive flight logs, multiple burner phones, undeniable payment trails, and irrefutable forensic evidence that linked them both directly to the drugs before they ever even crossed into the UK. He didn't come quietly, but he offered no resistance either. There was simply no point. In the meantime, CM Banks had already fallen. She was arrested in December 2023 at her home in Liverpool. There was no fanfare, just a quiet knock at the door and an evidence folder so thick it left no room for doubt. On her seized phone were the same encrypted chats, detailed drop-off instructions, exhaustive travel logs, and casual mentions of massive shipments by weight. Previously, investigators had only been monitoring these messages, building their case. Now, they possessed concrete, undeniable evidence of their systematic criminal enterprise. They stood separately in the dock, avoiding eye contact, presenting no shared defense. The courtroom didn't need a convoluted backstory. It had transcripts, meticulously detailed timelines, and the incriminating contents of 2 lorries. On the 12th of February, 2025, at Canterbury Crown Court, one of the UK's most quietly ambitious drug networks finally came to a definitive close. Eddie Burton, then 23, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of importing Class A and B drugs: heroin, cocaine, ketamine, and cannabis. He wasn't described by the prosecution as reckless, he was described as ruthlessly methodical, a coordinator of exceptional reach who operated through sophisticated encrypted systems, relying on third-party couriers and a continent-wide supply chain. The judge made it unequivocally clear that Burton had mistakenly believed encryption, geographical distance, and his youth would shield him, that living abroad meant existing beyond the reach of UK law. But it didn't. CM Banks, 25, admitted to 7 offenses, including drug importation, extensive money laundering, and direct, systematic coordination. The court flatly rejected any claim that she was a passive participant or a coerced partner. The judge, in no uncertain terms, called her indispensable. The NCA, for their part, called it a stern warning, a stark reminder that the modern drug trade doesn't always present itself as overt violence. Sometimes, It looks precisely like meticulously planned flight itineraries, subtly forged documents, and a casual message that reassures, "Don't worry, your prints were never taken." But they were. And the system, unlike the criminals, kept every single receipt. Eddie Burton was sentenced to a formidable 24 years in prison, a full term weighed not just by the sheer volume of drugs, but by the intricate, controlled structure he had painstakingly built behind them, a business constructed in silence, powered by an insatiable need for control. Dayan Banks, 25, received a substantial 17 years. What do you make of these sentences? Do you believe they were too harsh, perhaps too lenient, or did they deliver exactly what these architects of a hidden empire deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely read every single one. And if you want to uncover more real UK crime stories just like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let us know what you want us to cover next, because there is always another case, another hidden truth, waiting to be revealed.